Today's Christmas spot, we'll be having a look at the Diamond Select A Nightmare Before Christmas. This is Santa Claus. Let's take some measurements for jolly old Saint Nick, who stands just shy of 8 inches tall. Yes, he does come also with a little smaller figure. He comes with a little elf, and the elf, if you count the top of his hat, is about 5 3/4 of an inch tall. For accessories, Santa Claus comes with the bottom circular, or at least a quarter of the display base that's going to build the town square. More importantly, it looks as if they're going to be building the fountains that's going to go in the middle here. The other figures available in this set were Pumpkin King and Lock, Shock, and Barrel. I know we've kind of looked at these display bases before with previous released Nightmare Before Christmas figures, but it's still to note as well that I think they turn out pretty good, and you kind of have to look at the big picture rather than just the individual piece, because you know this is going to be added to a larger base that had been collected over the course of collecting the Nightmare Before Christmas figures. So you get, you know, a nice little like cobblestone kind of brickwork base here, washed with a little bit of blue over top of that. And these are little slotted areas in which the base is going to connect to itself. Not really much to be said again for it just yet, because again, there's still a lot we have to kind of touch base on. Santa Claus also comes with his list. A naughty, or in this case, nice list, I'm assuming, because these are the gifts that he's delivering. We've got Victor. Well, I won't go through the entire list, but they have written in all the names of the kids that are going to be getting a gift, as well as an unspooled area in which that you've got further, you know, kids' names. Again, it's not written all the way to the top. The list looks good. I mean, it's you know, it's a nice representation. They've got like a little bit of a darker paint on either edge of it, just to kind of give it that sense of age to it. Unfortunately, though, Santa Claus just can't hold it. He has only flat hands. Both hands are flat and open palms. There's really no right way of him holding it. If only his list could have included grabbing or gripping hands, he would have had the necessary means to actually hold the list. So it's not really, again, there's not really a place where you can put the list on Santa. Both hands are exactly the same, just of course, the reversed versions of themselves. Again, there's just no place to put it, which is a real shame. I would have liked to display Santa Claus with the list. Let's have a look at maybe the elf, and then we'll kind of go back to Santa Claus, because one of the other accessories they come included with this set is a clear circular base in which attaches to the underside of the elf's foot. Santa Claus doesn't need a display base, as you'll see. He's very well stabilized, mounted to the flat surface here. Let's spend a little time looking at the elf, which does look quite good, generally speaking. Paint is, for the most part, pretty good. I got a little, like, flecks. It looks like that's actually paint that's come off, and the undercoat is the plastic color, which is a bit of a shame. It's not the most vibrant colors here. Everything kind of seems a little on the muddy side, especially like the face. A little notch, a little marking there also on the nose. I like the sculpt, but I feel like the paint could have just been a little bit better on this guy. By the way, posability, we'll just take the display base off. He's got little wiggles, rotations on the lower leg. I find that this leg pops off a lot. And by doing that, you can also see how everything kind of comes together. It just rotates. It doesn't really have a ball joint or anything like that. He's got what looks to be universal joints in the arms, because the arms look like they can slightly hinge out, just a little bit. And again, you can rotate the arms all the way around. A little rotation and hinge on the hand. And of course, I'm guessing this to be a ball joint by the way that the neck is gapped the way it is. It's not simply just a case that I'm pulling the neck off, the head off the socket. It does look like it does have a ball joint, and it's got a swivel joint on the waist. Just a shame that the leg just doesn't want to stay in place. And by the way, the elf doesn't do the greatest of jobs standing, thereby you might want to make use of that stand. Just get that stand plugged into his foot. Now the elf stands perfectly fine. Do you see how stands work? Stands are a miraculous thing. Stands. Hashtag stands. Let's have a look at Santa Claus here. He does come with one accessory himself. He comes with a Santa hat, which there is, hopefully you can see it, a little kind of indentation there on the front, indicating which way the hat will face. It actually will face and line itself up to the front of his hair, and it sits in place. There we go. It doesn't sit to the point where the hat stays permanently. I mean, tipping the figure forward, it does fall off, but you're not likely going to be tipping the figure forward anyways. But just to say that, you know, just have to include that the hat does fall off. It stays in place as long as you got the figure kind of generally flat. And the figure stays really flat. A lot of that can be chalked up to the way that his costume is designed. I'm going to actually take the hat off for the time being. Let's look at his face and then we'll kind of work our way down. The face is good. I don't generally have any issues with the face as much as I had the issues with the elf face. But Santa's face is actually pretty good. Sculpting on the beard is also quite nice. Although, the one side, and this may not be everybody's figure, but one side, you see how it's got gray, kind of gray plastic, and then they put lighter gray washed over top of it. So what it essentially does is it doesn't fill in the little recessed areas. It only paints the outer surface so that you get this really nice effect where it gives texture to the hair. Well, they've accomplished to do that on the one side. Unfortunately, on the other side, it just kind of abruptly stops. That may not, again, be on everybody's particular figure, but I did notice it on this figure, that the paint just out of nowhere stops very sharply, as if the machine stopped there and then didn't proceed with painting the rest. His body is as portly and round as he appears in the show, the animated movie itself. And if you flip the figure upside down, you can see his holly, I suppose that is, or I guess it is holly, under briefs, or, you know, his, I don't know what you would call it, long johns. But what you can do is you can take and in fact, actually, it's misleading when you get the figure out of packaging, because in packaging, the pieces, let me see if I can actually take these apart, the pieces are overlapped. So like you have this piece here, and then the piece on the back is overlapped further down. So it actually does look like the figure is longer than what he actually is. But what I'm doing, if you're just asking yourself now, what exactly is he doing? I'm just trying to pry these pieces apart. They are tabbed, so you got a tab, and then a little peg, I should say, and hole on both sides. Prying it apart is a little bit more difficult than actually getting it together, because it actually has to sit on the ledge of the, kind of where the belt is from the top torso. And taking it apart, I just actually had to pause the camera. It's one of the more worrisome aspects of taking things apart, because you've got just that peg just attaching to itself. You really have to pry it apart to get the front half of Santa out. There's the back half of his jacket. And then you can take the front half off, just like that, and you got to get it kind of around his beard. So there's your two halves. Then you've got Santa in what I could only describe as his undergarments. This starts now coming to problems where the figure doesn't stand the greatest, kind of wants to lean back, but you can still get him to properly stand. And don't worry, I'll kind of put everything back together before we wrap up this video. Close-up look at his lawn johns, I suppose. Looks good. I mean, you've got like the little printings here of the holly, and you can now really see Santa's mass size. His little small, tiny, look at his little tiny Santa shoes. They're so small. It looks a little off because the belt and the torso stick further out from the lower area. So even though I appreciate the fact that Diamond Select includes an option to take the skirt off, the jacket is still going to be part of him. So taking a skirt off seems a little off. And of course you've got the big gap where all of a sudden the top half of him looks bigger than the bottom half. I just want to show you everything before we put those pieces back on. By the way, he does have articulation in the feet, and he doesn't seem to have any articulation in the top torso, probably because of the way everything comes together on this guy. So let's go ahead and find the pieces. We'll kind of slip it underneath Santa's hat, and you can kind of look and see, okay, well, which side? I'm thinking the more uncreased side is the side that faces the front of him. So, understanding the quick error I would have made, let's grab that, move that to the front. There we go. And then you have to do the same thing on the other side. And then just plug these into place. I wish there was a simpler means of doing this, because I do feel as if, I don't even want to say it, but I feel like pegging this together and pulling these apart. I'm committing myself only to probably doing this once for the review, and then afterwards I'm probably not going to do this again, because these pegs, they serve the more trickier aspect of this figure. In fact, hold on one second. I checked the packaging again. Turns out the more wrinkled of the jacket fits to the front of Santa, and the smoother or less wrinkles go to the back. It still makes for a very difficult reassembly, and again, I wouldn't advise doing it too often, especially those pegs. Those pegs seem to already have a little bit in the way of a stress mark developing. I wouldn't really do that too often. It's not really to say that you would necessarily want to be taking apart Santa's jacket, putting it back together, taking it apart, putting it back together. You're probably only going to do it once, just to kind of see the fact that he does allow, or he has the ability to do that. Looking at the rest of Santa Claus's outfit, it seems strange to say Santa Claus's. The coloring of the red is nice. I do notice, though, that the coloring of the red on the arms is a different shade of red than the rest of his body. It could very well have started at the same sort of red, but just so happens that they've added additional shading to the jacket torso and the lower part of the jacket, and maybe that's why the color seems as off as it does. The fur on the arms are a nice touch, but there's just areas where it seems like it's overly splotched. It's a figure that generally seems like a nice sculpt, but it seems to fall short slightly when it comes to paint applications. He seems also a little excessively red, that comparing it to the source material, I feel like he had a little bit more darker depth to his outfit, that it wasn't as pristine as what we saw. Maybe some little scratchings and little indications of details there as well would have otherwise taken some otherwise, I would say, very simple cues that this figure ends up having, and I think could have elevated it just a little bit more than what we're getting right here. Let's have a look at his posability, and then we'll kind of wrap up this review. His arms are on a universal joint. Generally, though, I have noticed on both arms, moving the arms out and moving them out of the way, you do start seeing, yeah, a little bit of paint has started scraping off the shoulders here. It doesn't seem to be the case all the time, but here, this is not an arm, at least, oh no, this is not really an arm I want to be moving a lot. Look at the paint that's just flaking off the shoulder area here of Santa Claus. This side's not so bad. I don't know what's catching up here, but it's scraping. Every single time I'm moving the arm in, it's scraping the paint off. You can even see it there. It's like a cheese grater. It's just like shaving off the paint as I'm moving it. That's not good. That's not good for anybody. The arms rotate all the way around nonetheless, and the individual hands rotate. They seem to fall out a lot, and there's unfortunately no joint or anything that allows the hands to hinge. It's really by virtue of the fact that there's a big enough gap in the forearm to attach the hand, for example, that allows for a little bit of extra wiggle there. But generally, the hands only rotate. That's all they're supposed to really do. The head doesn't really rotate, and you get just a very mild indication of a waist articulation, but that, I think, is more so chalked up to the way everything kind of comes together on Santa Claus's outfit here. Otherwise, I have to say, in all honesty, let's get his hat going back on here. Of the more naughtier gifts, I think, for this year, Santa Claus, unfortunately, from The Nightmare Before Christmas, I think falls closer to being a naughty figure than a generally nice figure. More times than not, I'm generally a big fan of Diamond Select releases. I think they put a lot of care and a lot of quality into what they do with the pieces. Unfortunately, of all the times for a figure to fall short, it has to be Santa Claus, and it has to be during the time of Christmas spots. Unfortunately, Santa Claus here falls short on many different steps. We can rhyme through a couple of them. The elf itself is a little on the muddy paint. Santa, on the other hand, paint is a big problem with paint scraping off the arms. You can probably even see it from the shoulder area there. Paint is otherwise messy on Santa Claus. The gimmick of taking apart his jacket is a nice touch, but really a pain in the butt to get back together. I would say there's more strikes, and of course the fact he can't hold his list is a big strike as well. Why he couldn't have come with grabbing or holding hands that he could have actually held his list. For all the kids that are going to be getting gifts this year, I don't even know how Santa's going to deliver them if he can't even hold his own Christmas list. Yes, unfortunately, Diamond Select's Nightmare Before Christmas Santa Claus falls closer to the naughty list than he does the nice list. Pick up this figure if you obviously have been collecting a Nightmare Before Christmas, but understand the fact that Santa Claus is going to have a lot of problems. And I'm not just talking about his weight. Today we were having a look at the Nightmare Before Christmas. This was Santa Claus. It came with a little elf. I think Santa Claus needs to get quality control on his list for next year's Christmas. If you guys haven't had a chance yet to hit that little subscribe button, make sure you hit it right down below. There are, of course, more Christmas spots will be heading to you before the end of this month. Let's hope that the quality and the execution of the other figures that we're going to be looking at is a little bit better than old Saint Nick here. Thanks for watching, as you always do, guys. I'll see you next time. Ho, ho, oh.